One of the great tales of ancient Greece is the myth of the poet Orpheus and his wife Eurydice. In the myth, Eurydice dies and her spirit is sent to the underworld, the bleak realm of the dead. Her spouse ventures into hell to retrieve her. His music is so powerful, he's able to enchant even the hard-hearted denizens of hell, like Charon in Hades. Hades allows Eurydice to return to the surface, but on the condition Orpheus maintain the faith she's behind him, and never look back to check she's there until they're at the surface. Orpheus does this, ascending the plains of the underworld, but just before reaching the exit, loses faith, turns around, and loses Eurydice forever. Later, Orpheus faces a fatal end, torn to pieces by the Maenads, or frenzied female followers of Dionysus. The tale of Orpheus is one of love and devotion. It explores the psychology of the lover, the idea of faith in a relationship, and the pains of doubt, infidelity, and betrayal. The myth examines the dream of idealism and how one partner can come close to the summit of perfect conduct and then be undone by the shortcomings of the other. It portrays a heroic lover who, like a great spiritual conqueror, seeks to overcome the power of death but fails. The tale of Orpheus and Eurydice exists in a tradition of works about the descent into hell. This motif recurs throughout mythology, such as in the Aeneid, the Odyssey, and the Divine Comedy. Another reference occurs in the ancient work, Ishtar's Descent, which describes the Babylonian goddess's trip to the underworld in pursuit of deathlessness. This narrative describes a psychic process, an experience of growth and maturation in a spiritual context. In Jungian psychology, the alchemist confronts the things about himself that are horrifying or repulsive, past traumas and shortcomings, and negative aspects of himself, like hatred, fear, anger, insecurity, and injustice. When he does this, he delves into the shadow and integrates his unpleasant traits into a larger vision of himself. By accepting and embracing these uncomfortable qualities, he comes to a new understanding. He becomes a whole psyche, wiser enabler, and better adapted to dealing with the human condition and life's vicissitudes. In Jungian psychology, this is the process of individuation and is the primary symbolic meaning of the descent into hell. Orpheus is one of the occult figures of ancient Greece, tied to the mystery religions. Like in the teachings of Plato and Pythagoras, the Orphic mysteries posited the idea of reincarnation or metempsychosis, the idea the human self was fettered to the world and forced to return to life again and again. A student of the historical Orpheus became an initiate, instructed in hidden knowledge. With this combined with the path of personal transformation, the initiate prepared the soul for death and the transition to the other world. In doing so, they gained liberation from the cycle of rebirth. Like in Plato's description of the mysteries of Eleusis, the path of Orphic religion was one of descent, search, and ascent, a formula for an individual's transition into the higher self. Thus, we see a template for this path in Orpheus' own descent and return from the underworld. Predating Homer, Orpheus was associated with the lyre or harp, and the idea that stringed instruments had the ability to communicate the subtlest emotions of the human experience. Similar to figures like Achilles or Agamemnon, attempting to discern the historical basis of Orpheus is difficult, because if he did actually exist, he lived so deep in antiquity, it's hard to say anything conclusive about him. It's true that the Trojan War was itself considered mythological, though after the excavations of Heinrich Schliemann, ancient Troy was concluded to be real, with its ruins showing many cycles of war, destruction, and reconstruction over the centuries. Thus, there's a precedent that an historical Orpheus may have existed in the deep past. Eurydice's story has a parallel in the tale of Persephone. The queen of the underworld, a Greek myth, explained how she became the wife of Hades. Given the underworld to rule over by his brother, Hades presided over a bleak realm of the dead. Seeking a spouse, he chose Persephone, the daughter of the goddess of the harvest and fertility, Demeter. In some versions of the myth, he physically abducts Persephone, forcibly bringing her with him to the underworld. In other versions, he seduces her, luring her with displays of his wealth. While Hades was associated with the grim world of shades and was rarely worshipped by the Greeks, he was also associated with the stupendous wealth of his realm, the depths of the earth being the source of gold, gems, and riches. He was so rich his name Plutos became the basis of our words, like plutocratic. With Persephone missing, her mother Demeter falls into despair, the source of agricultural abundance. Without her, the natural world descends into darkness, causing the gloom of winter to consume the earth. With the human world in danger, the gods mediate between Demeter and Hades. They compromise, and the solution they come to is to have Persephone split her time between the two realms, spending half the year in the underworld with her husband and half on the surface with her mother. This creates a cycle to the natural world, with summer happening when Persephone is on the surface and winter with Hades. This was how the ancient Greeks explained the shifting of the seasons. The story of Orpheus and Eurydice begins with their happy marriage. However, tragedy befalls them, and Eurydice ends up trapped in the underworld. The cause of this depends on the myth. In some versions, Eurydice is killed, and her shade is sent to Hades' realm. In other versions, like Aeneas Mitchell's Hadestown, Eurydice is seduced by Hades' wealth, similar to Persephone. The Flight of Eurydice explores the idea of what we should value in a partner. While Eurydice loves Orpheus for being an artist, an expression of the creative masculine, she's drawn to the idea of material abundance provided by Hades. Orpheus, as an aesthetic temperament, understands life's existential themes. His worth derives from his inner self, and through his art, he has the ability to inspire and motivate others. Unlike Hades, he's achieved self-actualization, realizing the heights of human potential. In contrast, Hades provides economic security, but little else. He has none of the virtues of the poet, is loveless and grim, and makes a poor lover, companion, and friend. With these as the two choices, we're asked to reflect on who makes the better spouse. In 2010, Aeneas Mitchell created Hadestown, a concept album of Orpheus's tale. With dedicated characters for the poet, Eurydice, Hades, Persephone, Hermes, and the Fates, the album uses music to express the devotion and desperation of the myth of Orpheus. The album uses folk, jazz, blues, and gospel influences to create a unique musical version of the myth. Some of the album's best tracks include Songbird, Hadestown, Why We Build the Wall, Wait For Me, and Doubt Comes In. The track Songbird features a deep-voiced Hades, showcasing his wealth and using it to seduce Eurydice. The track leads to Hadestown, the breakout song of the album, which imagines a bluegrass underworld. Traveling by train for the winter, Hades is portrayed as a titan of industry, while Persephone is shown as an empress, traveling in first class. Though Eurydice praises Orpheus for his love, virtue, and art, she complains about their poverty and is allured by the material glamour of the Plutonian realm. Not perceiving the truth of its ghouls and shades, she only sees the riches gleaned from its mines. When Eurydice arrives in the underworld, she sees the reality of Hades' realm and comes to regret her decision. It isn't the place it was sold to be. Though Hades is Plutos, the god of wealth, the truth is he presides over a joyless realm. The song Why We Build the Wall examines life in Hades' realm. While materially rich, he's cold and unhappy, and a miserable ruler to his subjects. The song explores how he has his followers put up barriers and walls, viewing the unequal hoarding of wealth as the only good worth pursuing. Neglecting relationships and love, Hades' values are the opposite of a poet like Orpheus, and recall Dante's portrayal of the hoarders in the Inferno. Wait For Me is one of the most beautiful songs on the album, exploring the desperation Orpheus has to reunite with Eurydice. The song's vocals express the feeling of true devotion, showing the despair a lover feels when separated from their spouse. Orpheus is so devoted, he's willing to follow Eurydice anywhere, including to hell itself. Following the railroad tracks down into the abyss, he departs, alone and with no possessions, like a mad lover. As he proceeds, Hermes watches and favors him, recalling the aid he gave to the hero Perseus in another myth. The power of Orpheus is that of music. Transcending speech, it's uniquely able to communicate some of the most powerful and refined ideas and themes. Iconic songs seem to surpass even works of literature, expressing the subtlest emotions and using sound to communicate the feelings and thoughts of existentialism. Orpheus's music is so impactful, he even moves the figures of hell with it. He plays it to Charon, the ferryman, the deathly guide of the dead, who provides him passage across the river Styx. He plays it to Cerberus, the three-headed guard dog, his music pacifying and placating him. Finally, he plays his song to Hades and Persephone, and moves the hard-hearted and implacable Hades to let one of his souls depart the underworld. Why Hades allows this depends on the version of the myth. In one version, Persephone is moved by the song, finding it reflects her own experience. Filled with hope by the tale of the heroic couple, she pressures her husband to let the poet retrieve Eurydice. In Aeneas Mitchell's version, Orpheus plays a song to Hades' workers, encouraging them to rise in a riot or revolution. With his subjects revolting against economic inequality, the social pressure forces Hades to let Eurydice go. In another version, Hades is a cruel cynic, convinced he can show the truth of his vision of the world. Far from benevolent, he gives Orpheus an impossible test of faith, one he knows, with his understanding of human nature, the poet will never be able to fulfill. In my favorite version of the myth, however, Orpheus' song is so powerful, it provokes compassion from Hades, the only time he's ever moved to sympathy in Greek mythology. Having proved his excellence by reaching the bottom of hell, Hades provides Orpheus with a rare opportunity to overcome death. However, he must demonstrate a superhuman character to be worthy of this. Hades' condition is that Orpheus must walk the whole way out of hell, back to the surface, without looking back to see if Eurydice is there. He must walk the whole way, in complete faith of her fidelity. Orpheus ascends the plains of hell, maintaining the conviction Eurydice is following him. Occasionally he hears a sound, and wonders if it's proof she's behind him. But each time it's something else, causing a doubt he's being played as a fool. As Orpheus approaches the world of the living, he wonders if Hades is deceiving him, or if Eurydice never came. In Hadestown, Aeneas Mitchell uses the song Doubt Comes In to express the struggle of Orpheus' journey out of hell. In it, he grapples with doubt, despair, and dejection. Having lost his lover once, he questions her faithfulness. Like a work of Wagner, the song dramatizes his inner torment. The song's suspense grows until he reaches the entrance to the underworld and begins to see the sunlight of the outside world. At the myth's most intense moment, when Orpheus is at the gate and has effectively achieved his quest, his belief falters and he turns around. For a moment he sees Eurydice, and then sees her vanish, losing her to the power of death forever. Aeneas Mitchell's album has an epilogue, where Eurydice raises her cup in the underworld in praise of Orpheus' heroic effort, but laments his failure. In the real myth, Orpheus returns to the surface dejected, and is slaughtered by the Maenads, the frenzied female followers of Dionysus. Beheaded and butchered by them, the work ends in tragedy. If we ponder the myth of Orpheus, it describes a superhuman figure, like we explored in the mythology of Christ, confronted with the power of death and trying to overcome it. It portrays a man who reaches enlightenment and tries to share it with his spouse. It shows a husband trying to elevate his partner, exploring the tropes of helping someone who's damaged, traumatized, or spiritually lost. The myth leaves us with a bleak lesson of frustration and disappointment, of one partner proving to be excellent, but being let down by the other, whether that's Eurydice's initial elopement or Orpheus' turning back. The myth inspires us with the tale of the superhuman, but leaves us with a grim lesson of the realities of idealism, limerence, and destiny.